So let's go down memory lane here. The first puzzle that we visited was the balance bridge, and it had this symbol, which kind of looks like a bridge, in a way. Maybe I'm just reading too much into that. And that's exactly what we wanted to have happen, so great. Alright, the next one was the resonance rings, which had this symbol. The only one of the three that's not symmetric, I might add. And finally, as they're known in some circles, the turntable tracks, which had this symbol. Great, so now we've got one long continuous section of track going to whatever that is. We still don't know. I mean, it's not perfect looking. It's made out of two different kinds of material, but at least it's still shaped the same, so that's something. So whatever ice sphere rolls down here should be a-okay. But our immediate concern is getting inside here, because we can finally do that. Whoa. Well, can't say I was exactly expecting that to happen. This thing's pretty nifty. What on earth is up with all this stuff? There's all these disjointed pieces of track just going everywhere here. We can see all the doors that lead in and out of the place, but we don't exactly see how this all works. There's also these structures around the room that are marked by a gigantic marble, and they have cross-shaped pieces of track. So maybe these ones are supposed to have two different trips taken through each of them or something. Well, there's nothing we can do about that now, so let's just keep on going. Oh, another one of these things. Alright, I've got only one question about this. If Cirrus and Agonar went through this entire Lesson Age course together, how do they fit in this thing? Well, okay, maybe if they were kids I can understand it, but even then, maybe they just did it separately. But if they did do it together, I mean, what did they have to do to make this work? Did Cirrus have to sit on Agonar's lap? Or okay, let's not go down that train of thought, never mind. Also, I can't look down here. I guess that's realistic, though. Alright, enough distractions. Let's watch this.
20 years, Atris. 20 long years alone. They tied me to a post. They burned their Myst linking books in front of me. They took everything I had. My wife. My 2 baby girls. And then, when I finally made it back to Narayan and I saw... It would have been better if I had died.
Wow, that was pretty intense. But it tells us a little bit more about Saavedra's story, specifically a part of it that we haven't really talked about much, and that is what exactly happened when Cirrus and Agonar lured him to Jananan. We read a little bit about this in his journal, but we haven't quite gotten the full story yet until now. So when Cirrus and Agonar started the Civil War in Narayan, it sounds like Saavedra got really upset about everything, and Cirrus and Agonar saw that and baited him into using their Jananan linking book to go to Jananan, where they tied him up literally to a post there, maybe even that broken pole that we saw along the way. Well, at any rate, after they ditched him, he was able to free himself and presumably went through the Lesson Age course until he finally got back to Narayan, as he said in the message, and saw everything all ruined, as well as the Jananan book still laying there, presumably. So this establishes how he was able to travel between Jananan and Narayan. But how exactly was he able to travel between Jananan and Tamana? Well, it's not too difficult to assume that Atris used a linking book, or perhaps even a descriptive book, to Jananan when he went over to there to visit, and that when Saavedra found the Tamana book that Atris left behind, as we discussed earlier, he may have been able to find the Jananan linking book or the descriptive book that Atris used. Maybe it was even still open, and he was able to use it in such a way that made it non-obvious that he had tampered with it. At any rate, he had to find a way to make it non-obvious, no matter what. But the question now is, how was Saavedra able to link to Tamana with the Jananan book in his hand? Well, the only possible answer to this question is that he had to have done it from Narayan, as that's where the Jananan linking book was all that time, and he couldn't have taken the Jananan linking book to Jananan since he would have left it behind in Narayan every time, and thus he couldn't have used it from any of the other lesson worlds. We also know this for another reason as well. When we followed him to Jananan, we saw him tampering, well, not tampering, but just playing around with the scanner and putting all the symbols in to raise the Narayan book. And we saw that when he used the Narayan book, the whole machine reset itself. So it's not too unreasonable to assume that when he went to Narayan to use his, or to get his Jananan book with his Tamana book in hand, he reset the puzzle there, and that he had to copy all the symbols again when we chased him. So yeah, that should fill in pretty much all the blanks about where Saavedra has been all this time and what book he used where. Anyway, hopefully that explanation wasn't too confusing. Let's see what we can do next here. We got a little lever here. Okay. Whoa. Well, I don't know if you recognize that little sound when this thing raised up, but that's the sound we've been hearing each and every single time an ice ball has been created. So we are inside the cupola, which is pretty amazing. And we've got colored buttons all over the place here. So where exactly have we seen colors before? Well, we've seen one on every puzzle surrounding the hexagon code every time we solve a puzzle. So let's just try a random one. We just solved this one. We can make a little ice sphere here. And we can see it go through everything. Pretty cool. And of course that raises up. But then the ball smashes and it lowers back down. Well, we know why it's smashing. It's because all those track pieces inside the area in there, inside the, I can't get the word out of my mouth, pagoda, wow, are all jumbled up. Well, maybe that's what this thing here is for. After all, we did see 4 cross pieces inside, and we can see these sections over here that all have colors associated with them. So let's see if we can find a way to play around with this. The one thing that we can infer is that the red area must be this section here, since it's the only color that hasn't been accounted for yet. Not to mention that it's pointing this way with all the buttons. Well, that's not too surprising. But what we have established is that whenever we get one of the puzzles solved, one of the track pieces raises up until the ball smashes, it seems. Let's test that theory out by connecting the red section to another section. Let's see. Why don't we connect it to... Let's see. We would need to do this, right? There we go. I think we're starting to get this whole thing in place. But we've got some issues here because this just smashes right into this. There's no other position for this other than this cross shape. So that's not going to work well. Well, we wanted to go over here. But how can we do that? There we go, I think that should do. Thing is, connecting this to this is a little weird. So let's try launching something off green and seeing what happens. There we go. Well, that confirms what we had suspected, that the track pieces do remain up until the ice sphere shatters into something. So all we really need to do is make sure that we complete a circuit around all of these 3 puzzles before it ends here at the red section. Hopefully that won't be too much of a pain, right? We can hope. Okay, maybe that's a little too much to wish for, but let's see what we can do here about this. Well, actually, it seems like we've got something in place here if we start from blue, and then we go to yellow, and then cross over to green, and then go down through here to go back to red. Of course, we don't know exactly what this is going to accomplish when we launch an ice sphere there, so let's just cross our fingers and hope for the best. Okay, something is different about this. Oh, man. Guys, do you realize what we're about to do? Wow. I really don't know what to say other than wow. You know, if they turned that into a real amusement park ride, I would totally pay to go in and see it. Although I have to wonder, why did the pieces of the bridge at the very end just raise at the last minute? It's kind of odd. At any rate, we got the symbol for this age. We could actually see parts of it from over there from a certain angle, but it has to be viewed from this angle in order to get the full effect. But this brings to mind a certain journal entry that Saavedra wrote. This one, where he talked about desecrating the poem that he placed in the columns. Well, these are certainly columns, and we know that he's been changing the symbols, so could this set of curves be a poem, maybe in Narayan? We do know that it almost has to be the symbols because he talked about covering another one with sap, and we do know that the symbol in Idana was next to some tree sap. So the only remaining one is this one that involves an island. Of course, the question now is, what exactly was the concept that Atreus was trying to teach using this age? The other ones that he mentioned in his journal, other than civilization, which we have to assume is Narayan, were energy and dynamic forces, and honestly both seem like good candidates for this age. I guess we'll just have to see what the third age has in store for us before we really make a decision. Well, time to do the usual here. Come on. Seriously? There we go. Alright, opened.
This what you expected, Atreus? When you followed me here hoping to reclaim relation? Is this classroom what you expected to find? I read your journal, you know. In Tamana, after I found your linking book abandoned outside this observatory, I read all about the Dunning. How you started their world again. Can you really do that, Atreus? After everything that's happened to Narayan? Could you start their world over again? I don't think so. I think there's too much blood on our hands, too many ghosts. Surely you can't change that with a pen stroke. One more symbol, Atreus. Narayan is waiting.
It looks like Saavedra is rather mistaken about the nature of linking books and what Atreus can do with them. He seems to believe that Atreus has some kind of godlike power to create or rewrite entire worlds through the stroke of a pen, but if you've played the Myst series, you know that this is not really the case. You can't really write worlds into existence with a linking book, or a descriptive book. You can only write a link to an existing world. This was another misunderstanding that came up during Riven, the previous game in the series. In that adventure, Atreus' father Gien suffered under delusions of grandeur where he believed himself to be a god, and that he was writing worlds into existence with his books. Of course, I can't really blame Saavedra for thinking this because Cirrus and Agonar exploited this common misconception and used it to sway the Narayan people into believing that their world was not really all that great, and that there were better things out there. But, in a rather strange twist of irony, it seems like this misunderstanding actually managed to save Atreus' life. I mean, Saavedra could have killed Atreus when he went back to Tamana and found his family there. But it seems like his believing that Atreus possesses some greater power prevented him from doing this, and instead he's luring them out here to a place where he could be vulnerable. At least that's what I'm gathering. At any rate, we've got one more symbol to go, and one more age to visit.